Oh, none of my fingers clicked. That was disappointing. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Morning Bible. I was doing that right next to the microphone as well, so you would have definitely heard that. We are kicking off a new chapter this morning. Very exciting. We are chapter 20 of Luke. Jesus is in Jerusalem. He is in the city. He's made it. He's got there. And so all of the things that have been prophesied to happen with him are now about to come to pass. Really big, important chapter. Let's just jump straight into it from verse 1. One day, as Jesus was teaching the people in the temple and preaching the gospel, the chief priests and scribes with the elders came up and said to him, "Tell us by what authority you do these things, or who it is that gave you this authority." So, Jesus is in the temple. We talked about this yesterday. When Jesus arrives in Jerusalem, the first thing he does is look at the city and weep because he knows how much, how distant some of the people are from God in this place. And so that breaks his heart. Second thing he does, he goes straight to the temple and he clears out all of the merchants who are in there. There are loads of people who have sort of taken this temple, what is supposed to be this holy space, and are using it to make money, and are generally just mistreating the place, not praying, not using it for the correct purposes. So Jesus goes in, he clears those people out. And it ended yesterday's reading telling us that Jesus stayed there for several days teaching. He would every day just be teaching in this place to anyone who would come and listen to him. And so that's where we pick up in chapter 20. We see Jesus is teaching in this place, but one day the people who are in charge come along because obviously Jesus would have been making quite a stir. Firstly, he drove out all these merchants. Secondly, he is now starting to teach. And these people won't necessarily know who he is. Jesus isn't an officially recognized priest. He hasn't signed up for anything. He doesn't come from this place. So all these people just see this random guy walking in and kind of doing their job in their own temple. So they'll have concerns. Also, there might be a level of annoyance there because the merchants who are trading there, most likely the reason why they're allowed to trade there is because they're paying off some of the people in charge of the temple, some of the priests, some of the officials. And so they may have been annoyed by losing that source of revenue as well. And so in order to do this, in order to kind of drive Jesus out, they think, okay, we need to criticize him, we need to question him. Who's given you authority to do this? We need to destabilize him in the eyes of these people so that they'll stop believing him, so that he'll sort of get fizzled out on his own. And so they come up to him and they say to him, "Tell us by what authority you do these things, or who it is that gave you this authority." This could be both in a very sort of earthly sense of who's given you permission to be here teaching in this temple, but the way that it's sort of read and the way Jesus responds to it and the way the people continue this interaction, it's very clear that this is on a much bigger scale. They're saying, who's given you authority to speak as if you are speaking on God's behalf? Who's given you authority to say these huge things, to talk about the Old Testament law like this, to change people's perspective, to talk about the kingdom of God? Who's given you authority to do this? Where's that come from? And so let's see what Jesus says in reply. He answered them, "I also will ask a question. Now tell me, was the baptism of John from heaven or from man?" So this is something Jesus does a lot. Rather than give a direct answer, Jesus will answer with a question. And so in this instance, he flips the question back on them, but instead of making it about him, he talks about John the Baptist. Now, John the Baptist hasn't been mentioned for a little while in the book of Luke. He was beheaded quite a few chapters ago, but the general consensus around John the Baptist was that he was speaking with authority, was that he was a genuine prophet. All of the crowds who were there would have sort of believed that, and a lot of the chief priests and people would have believed that. And so there is a real movement behind John the Baptist. When the Bible talks about John preparing the way, that's one of the ways in which he prepares it. There is a big movement of people that believe John, that believe that he is the one who is sort of coming before the Messiah. And so when Jesus comes, there is already this group of people. And so this is one of those times where that becomes relevant. And so Jesus asked them, he says, "So who gave John authority?" You know John the Baptist. Who gave him the authority? Did it come from heaven, or did it come from man? So was John the Baptist essentially a liar, or did it come from God? So let's see what they said. It says, and they discussed it with one another, saying, if we say from heaven, he will say, then why do you not believe him? But if we say from man, all the people will stone us to death, for they are convinced that John was a prophet. So these chief priests, these scribes, they recognize that all of these people believed John the Baptist. They all followed John the Baptist. And so if these people say that John the Baptist is a liar, if he's got his authority from man, then they know this crowd is going to attack them and turn on them. So that just isn't an option for these guys. They will not stand by that, which is interesting because that is kind of what we're led to believe, that these people believe, but they don't believe it enough to stand by it, to be stoned to death for it. So their beliefs aren't necessarily all that strong in the face of real adversity. And so the other side of it is, if we say from heaven, he will say, why did you not believe him? So John the Baptist pointed to Jesus as saying, look, this guy is the Messiah. This is the guy who's coming through. And so if we say that John the Baptist was getting his authority from heaven to please the crowd, then that then means that we are then giving this Jesus figure the authority as well, because Jesus and John were linked. They were family. John prepared the way for Jesus and was very explicit in supporting Jesus. And so either way, these guys recognize they've dug themselves a big hole and they can't get out of it. And so, so they answered that they did not know where it came from. So their answer in the end is, we don't know where this authority's come from. We don't have any strong feelings one way or the other. Very diplomatic answer, very politician's answer. And Jesus said to them, neither will I tell you by what authority I do these things. So Jesus is saying, if you aren't going to answer my question, if you aren't going to take a stand on this, if you aren't going to stand by your beliefs, then I don't need to say what my authority is, because clearly you guys don't have that firmness in yourself. You don't have that solid sort of grounding in yourself to be able to stand by your beliefs or any of the rest of it. And so Jesus is saying, well, if you won't answer my questions, I'm not answering yours. Simple as. And in the crowd's eyes, this pretty much wins the argument for Jesus, and in our eyes as well. You know, if you get an argument like this where it just goes back with two quick sentences, all Jesus does is asks one question. He just asks one question, and the chief priests are just sort of stood there going, we got nothing. We got absolutely nothing. Then the whole crowd of people are going to be like, all right, cool, we're not listening to those chief priests anymore, because clearly they don't know what they're on about. They haven't got any conviction. They haven't got anything to stand for and anything to stand against. They are just going with what the crowd wants them to say, but then also not wanting to go with what Jesus is saying. So yeah, I digress. Essentially, Jesus has just shown up all of these guys as being completely flat and completely useless to an extent. I don't know any of the guys personally. They may not have all been useless. They may have done some good stuff in their lives, and they may have changed. But you know, Jesus has shown that he is the one. So yeah, we're going to leave it there today. Thank you very much for watching. I have a packet of Pom Bears I need eating, and so I'm going to go and do that. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye bye bye.